Instead of directly returning to Liu Xiaonyang's house, Chen Ping'an went back to the mud bottle lane and told Ning Yao about Liu Xiaonyang's plan. After hearing this, Ning Yao didn't comment. She just said that it was a matter between you. She just took money to eliminate disasters for others. If Liu Xiaonyang could escape without her hand, she would return the 3 bags of gold, essence and copper money. Chen Ping'an said it was not about money. As a result, Ning Yao replied coldly, "So you want to talk about feelings with me? Where are we?" Chen Ping'an almost choked on her words, so he had to squat on the threshold and scratch his head. Ning Yao glanced at the cakes brought by Chen Ping'an on the table, including cheap and beautiful glutinous rice and juju cakes and relatively expensive ring and balls. It must be the way that the young man did his best to entertain guests. For the first time, the young girl felt a little soft-hearted and guilty. For a moment, she felt as if she was unkind, cannibal, and living in other people. In case of difficulties, she couldn't add fuel to the fire even if she couldn't help. So he asked, "Is it possible that Liu Xiaonyang had to sell the green and black whale armor because he was threatened by the blacksmith shop? For example, there are clauses for surnames and 10 nationalities hidden in the shop, which secretly taught Liu Xiaonyang a lesson." After thinking for a moment, Chen Ping'an shook his head and said, "None. Liu Xiaonyang is definitely not the kind of person that bowed his head to admit defeat when threatened. When I saw him for the first time, even if he was beaten by those people in Fulu Street and vomited blood, he didn't say a word of soft words. He carried it all the time. He was almost killed alive." Liu Xiaonyang hasn't changed his temper for so many years. Ning Yao asked again. "He is vigorous and brave, pays more attention to promises than life and death. In fact, the rangers in Xiangnong are never short of. I have seen a lot with my own eyes all the way. But when Stolly is in the present, can Liu Xiaonyang keep his heart?" Chen Ping'an was lost in thought again. Finally, his eyes firmly said, "Liu Xiaonyang will not be a loser because of what outsiders have given. He has deep feelings for his grandfather. Unless he really said his grandfather told him before his death the Beogia can be sold, but don't sell it at a low price. And the sword scripture must stay in the Liu family and be left to future generations." Ning Yao said, "As far as I know, the appearance of that armor is not vulgar, but it is not too rare. On the contrary, it is the Sword Sutra, which has been coveted by Jian Mountain for a long time, and does not hesitate to send people here to look for treasure. It is clear that it is regarded as a thing in the bag, so it must be a good thing. Therefore, the decision to sell treasure armor and keep Sword Sutra makes sense." Chen Ping'an nodded. Ning Yao stroked the green scabbard with cold eyes. "Be careful. I'll go to Liu Xiaonyang's house with you. I'll send the woman first. Since Liu Xiaonyang said he wanted to sell it, I'll carry the box loaded with treasure armor. Then I'll go to Ruan's shop with you. I'll meet Liu Xiaonyang and ask him what he thinks. If it's really his grandfather's dying will, you and I don't need to tell me what to do. It's difficult for our family, Jing. If you shouldn't take care of it, don't take care of it. If not, let him express his difficulties. It's a big deal that I'll get the box back." Chen Ping'an asked anxiously, "Miss Ning, your body is okay?" Ning Yao sneered. "If it's to deal with the old ape who moved the mountain in Jian Mountain, I'll be disheartened. But if it's that woman, I'll have one hand in this town." Chen Ping'an said curiously, "Moving ape?" Ning Yao said perfunctorily, "It's an ancient evil beast left in this world. It's really a giant ape as big as a mountain peak. It's said that once you show your real body, you can lift a mountain up and carry it away. But these are all rumors. After all, no one has really seen them. Jian Mountain has been silent for hundreds of years. In fact, it has a deep foundation. Although the sex ranking in Dongbao Pingshu is not high up, but it can't be underestimated. So we cannot argue with them. It's best to have a dispute. Double quotes. Chen Ping'an carefully asked, "What if there is a dispute?" Ning Yao stood up. His thumb pushed the knife out of its sheath for more than an inch, and looked at the grass shoe boy with an idiot's eyes. The girl naturally said, "What else can I do? Cut them to death." Chen Ping'an swallowed his saliva. After that, the young man carrying a basket on his back, took the girl who put on the curtain hat again and wore a green knife on her waist and walked slowly to Liu Xiaonyang's ancestral house. Ning Yao glanced at the young man's basket and asked, "Why it is so few today?" Chen Ping sighed. Macaque Swan. "Oh, he's the grandson of mother-in-law Ma on the other side of Xinhua Lane. He is about my age. No, he seems to have completely changed. According to him, the feng shui of the town has changed, so the stones in these streams can keep Jie." Ning Yao looked dignified and said in a deep voice, "He's right. This town is going to change. You'd better solve this matter as soon as possible and get out of the town. Even if you leave and come back, it's better than staying in the town all the time." Chen Ping'an is not a muscle that doesn't hit the south wall and doesn't look back. He has been used to living alone since childhood. On the contrary, he knows more about human feelings and priorities. He nods and smiles and says, "Yes, as long as I see that Liu Xiaonyang has drunk Master Worship tea with Master Ruan, I'll leave here right away. At that time, Master Ruan also promised to forge a sword for you." Looking at the happy guy on his face, Ning Yao wondered, what has nothing to do with you is worth being so happy? Why don't you be convinced to say you're a bad man? Maybe he thought they were familiar, and Chen Ping'an didn't speak as secretive as before. He said boldly, "Liu Xiaonyang, Gu Kan, and Miss Ning, you think there are so many people in the world. I care about the quality of the three people. Why am I a bad man?" Ning Yao asked with a smile, "What's my ranking among the three?" Chen Ping'an said sincerely and shyly that for the time being, Ning Yao took off his saber and casually held it in his hand. He patted the boy on the shoulder with his scabbard. He smiled and said, "Chen Ping'an, you have to thank me for no killing." Chen Ping'an asked inexplicably, "Don't you feel bored with decocting medicine?" Ning Yao was stunned and understood his idea. "Chen Ping'an, I suddenly found that you can live very well even outside." Chen Ping'an was not greedy at all and said sincerely, "Just as good as now." Ning Yao was non-committal and gently shook the green knife in his hand, just like a country girl shaking a flower branch. At the corner of Liu Xiaonyang's alley, a dark shadow suddenly appeared. Ning Yao almost pulled out his knife and scabbard. Fortunately, he held back in time. It turned out to be a yellow dog. It revolved around Chen Ping'an's intimacy. Chen Ping'an bent down and rubbed the yellow dog's head, got up and smiled. Lei Fu was raised by the family next to Liu Xiang and Yang. It's called Lei Fu. It's been many years. Liu Xiaonyang and I used to take it up the mountain and just join in the fun behind us. Liu Xiaonyang always disliked that it couldn't catch mountain rabbits and pheasants. It's always said that Lei Fu is not even as good as a cat, like the cat raised by Macaque Swan. It is often seen that it can take pheasants and snakes home. No Fu is old. He is in his teens. He is very old. Speaking of this, the straw sandal boy couldn't help bending down again, touched Lei Fu's head and said softly, "A lot of years. You have to take the oath, right? Don't worry. I won't be hungry when I make a lot of money in the future." Ning Yao shook his head, which she could not sympathize with. Even if she came all the way, she had seen many people and many things, such as the high immortal family, the flesh and blood ordinary people, the royal clothes and angry horses of the children of dignitaries, the immortal style of flying in the wind, and had seen many joys and sorrows. Ning Yao, a Buddha's worker, walked barefoot on a bleak and stormy night, singing the Buddha's name with firm steps. A poor scholar who went to Beijing for the examination gently threshed the fox charm in human skin in a dilapidated ancient temple. When he finally set off again, he didn't regret even knowing that he was a slight frost on his temples. There are young Taoists with the title of Heavenly Master who walk alone in ancient battlefields and mass graves, silently reciting the boundless blessed life, and do not hesitate to consume their cultivation to lead a way out for the lonely and wild ghosts. At the beginning of taking office, there are middle-aged civil servants who personally ban prostitution in the Dragon King Temple. Their lips are cracked and bleeding. They put incense tables on the edge of the dry river bed and read the Dragon King praying for rain in a hoarse voice. Finally, in order to govern the people in the territory, he knelt down and apologized to the Dragon King Temple. There are ancient and rare old people from the former dynasty who don't want to take their sons from the new dynasty, but only their little grandson who learned it from school, facing the broken old mountains and rivers of their family and country. They are full of tears. They tell their beloved grandson what the states and counties that have changed their names should be called. There is a boat in the dozens of miles long gorge, straight down the river. Some scholars read it with high spirits in the sound of apes on both sides of the strait at the place of understanding. They rode up to the sky. There was a Chinese woman covered with armor. Behind the smoke, she drank wine on her horse. All the way to see and understand. Ning Yao's heart to the Tao is always as stable as a rock without any muddle. Now, Ning Yao sees another scene. A lonely young man in a shabby alley, carrying a basket, tying a fish basket and touching the head of an old dog. The young man is full of hope for the future. Not long after they returned to Liu Xiaonyang's house, someone knocked at the door. Chen Ping'an and Ning Yao looked at each other. Then Chen Ping'an went out to open the door. Ning Yao just stood at the door, but she glanced back at the long sword lying quietly on the counter. Liu Zhengchun was the one who knocked on the door. Naturally, the woman was the first. In addition, there were two Liu's loyal servants. Liu Zhengchun looked kind and asked softly, "You're Liu Xiaonyang's friend. Your name is Chen Ping'an, right? We're here to carry the box." Liu Xiaonyang should have said hello to you, so don't worry about taking this bag of money. In addition, our wife promised Liu Xiaonyang that she would hand it to him in the future. Chen Ping'an took the bag of money and got out of the way. The graceful woman took the lead in entering the yard. Liu Zhengchun followed with two servants. The woman personally opened the red lacquer wooden box that had been placed in the main hall, squatted down and reached out to touch the ugly armor. Her eyes were blurred for a moment, and then there was an irrecoverable heat and desire. But this feeling was soon restrained by the woman and returned to normal. After she stood up, she motioned that Liu Zhengchun could start to carry the box. The things were not heavy. After all, there was only one armor in it. The woman was the last to leave the house. When she reached the threshold, she looked back at the straw sandal boy and said with a smile, "Liu Xiaonyang really treats you as a friend." Chen Ping'an, who didn't know his meaning, had to say nothing, but silently sent them away from the yard. Finally, Chen Ping'an stood outside the door and refused to move for a long time. Ning Yao came to him. The woman walked after Liu Zhengchun. When she came to the end of the alley, she looked around and saw the young girls standing side by side. She joked and said, "It's nice to be young, but you have to live." In the corridor bridge across the stream, a tall boy fell in a pool of blood, convulsed and vomited bleeding water. Only this time, the tall boy could not hear a black and thin guy shouting dead again and again. The steps at the north end of the corridor bridge were crowded and taut. They watched the excitement from a distance, but they didn't dare to get close to the boy for fear of causing trouble. Two people walked quickly into the corridor bridge. The man squatted down and caught the boy's wrist pulse. His face became more and more heavy. The girl in blue hated him very much. She gnashed her teeth and said, "One punch smashed his chest." What a cruel means. Men don't talk. The girl in blue with the ponytail angrily said, "Dad, you just watched Liu Xiaonyang be killed alive. Liu Xiaonyang is half of your apprentice." The man didn't loosen the boy's wrist. His face was expressionless and said calmly, "Where do I know the Tangtangyang mountain is so unruly this time?" The girl suddenly got up. "You don't care. I'll take care of it." The man looked up and asked slowly, "Ruins you? Do you want your father to collect your body?" The girl strode forward and said in a deep voice, "I ruins you can not only eat one thing, I can also kill." A man's anger loomed between his eyebrows. Less than half of the reason is his daughter's stupidity. More naturally, it is the vicious shot of the old ape in Jianyang Mountain. The man thought, since he has not officially taken over Che Jinchen's position, does it mean that he cannot be so reasonable? The girl in blue suddenly stopped. The girl suddenly saw a thin boy running frantically to her side from the other end of the corridor bridge. She saw the familiar figure, wearing a pair of straw sandals, expressionless and inching well. They passed by in an instant. The girl wanted to say something, but she couldn't say it. For no reason. She felt very wronged and burst into tears. When the straw sandal boy sat beside him and reached out his hand to grasp the tall boy's hand, Liu Xiaonyang, whose sight had been blurred, seemed to have a little more spirit at once, trying to squeeze out a smiling face, and said intermittently, "The woman said that she could kill you if I didn't hand over the armor. She also said that anyway. She came to our town with her mother and son, and one of them was expelled. She could afford it. I'm afraid she would really kill you. What I told you before is not all a lie. My grandfather did tell me that. So I think it's no big deal to sell it. Just now she asked someone to come to me and said that the old man was crazy. As soon as she heard that I didn't have a sword sutra, she insisted on killing you first and then me. I was really worried about you and wanted to say hello. She ran all the way here and was punched by the old bastard. It hurt a little." The straw sandal boy lowered his head and gently wiped the blood from the corners of Liu Xiaonyang's mouth. The boy wrinkled his dark and emaciated face and whispered, "I'm not afraid. It's okay. Trust me. Don't talk. I'll take you home. The energetic spirit of the tall boy gradually faded away. His eyes drifted and murmured, "I don't regret it. And you don't blame yourself. Really. That is. I'm just a little afraid. It turns out that I'm also afraid of death." Finally, the tall boy held his only friend's hand tightly and sobbed, "Chen Ping'an, I'm really afraid of death." The straw sandal boy sat on the ground, holding Liu Xiaonyang's hand with one hand and holding his fist on his knee. Gasp and breathed hard. A young boy is like an old dog at this time. The eyes of the straw sandal boy are red. When he wants to ask God for justice, he is more like a dog. Chen Ping'an doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to do this again in his life. Lo's house in Fulu Street is small and exquisite, but it has a unique cave. It is the Su's woman in Qingfeng City. She also thinks it is a Taoist temple in the shell of a snail. It has achieved the extreme and can't be demanding anymore. In a waterside pavilion near the lake, the woman who had just successfully pocketed Liu Xianxia was full of joy and complacency. She was lazy and leaning against the fence. She was probably in a good mood. As for Lu Zhengchun's fly standing on the steps of the waterside pavilion, she didn't think it was so eye-catching. The sun in a big red robe stood on the bench and drew bait into the small lake. Nearly 100 red-backed carp crowded together with red waves. The picture was quite spectacular. The woman told Lu Zhengchun, "You don't have to wait here. When this happens, you will follow us to Qingfeng City. In addition to asking my husband to accept you as a disciple, you will also agree to your grandfather's unreasonable request. Be sure to ensure that you can enter the middle 5 realms one day. You know that this commitment is the most valuable. So your grandfather is an old fox." At this point, the woman smiled at herself. "Let me see. If your grandfather was at the helm of the Lushi family, the Lushi dynasty might not collapse so quickly." Even Song Chengjing, a dolly fan with eyes higher than the top, admitted that he could destroy the country within a year. The credit book is half that of your Lushi family. Of course, your small town Lushi is not very lucky. It may not be both glorious and lossy with the main Lushi family. Therefore, this time with Qingfeng City will give you this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Don't miss it and take it well." Lu Zhengchun stooped very low, bowed his hands above his head, and said with gratitude, "Lu Zhengchun will never forget Mr. Su's great kindness. When he arrives at the Qingfeng City that moves the world in the future, he will be a cow and a horse for Mr. Su." And Lu Zhengchun vowed to be loyal to Mr. Su alone in his life. So when Qingfeng City smiled charming, narrowed his eyes and said softly, "Don't let my husband, your future master, hear such words. Well, you can repeat them in front of him at that time. Maybe after kneeling down to Liu Xiaonyang in the mud bottle lane." Lu Zhengchun no longer had a grudge about this matter. After hearing the woman's hard-killing remarks, he immediately knelt down. The whole person crawled on the top of the steps outside the waterside pavilion and said in a trembling voice, "Lu Zhengchun will never forget his roots." The woman smiled, waved her hand at Will, and began to drive people. "All right, get up. When you come to Qingfeng City, it takes the most time to practice. You know the horsepower from a distance. Do you forget your roots and come out naturally?" Lu Zhengchun stepped back and left the waterside pavilion. He walked down the steps and slowly turned around. the dandy of Xianxia, who used to call the wind and rain in the town, seemed to have never straightened up in front of the woman. The Lu family outside the town, as the ruling surname of a great dynasty, was seriously damaged by the Dolly border army. It was hard to make a comeback in the short term. From top to bottom, Lu's lineage, side branches, and distant families had to live with their tails. Otherwise, with the family background and reputation of Qingfeng City, I would never dare to do the business of occupying the nests of the magpies in the Lu family's house in the small town. I would also dare to stand down and shout at the Lu family's children. Otherwise, even if I changed to the master and servant of Jian Mountain, I would be very reluctant. Now, when Lu's dragon travels to the show, the current situation is difficult, so he has to be low. The red-robed boy sneered and said, "You're a natural slave. What are you doing with this waste? Mom, you won't really let my father take him as an apprentice and promise him a middle five realm. When was the middle five realm so cheap and worthless?" The woman smiled. Although Lu Jianchun looks detestable, he is not without merit. He has ordinary qualifications. He was lucky to have become an external disciple. But in the final analysis, this young man is just a small addition to the big deal and can't afford to stir up any storm. On the surface, his mother promised so much to the Lu family in the small town and promised to the fleeing royal relatives and golden branches and jade leaves of the Lu family, "You can take refuge and take root in Qingfeng City. Qingfeng City will treat you with courtesy and treat you as a guest of honor." Even a large area is specially divided in the city as Lu's private territory for a period of 100 years. After throwing the bait, the child suddenly ran out of the waterside pavilion, picked up a lot of stones, and then lay on the railing and threw stones at the carp. He had a lot of fun and turned his head and said, "My mother, is it a cover-up for us to come to the town to look for Xianxia? Is it that soon Qingfeng City took this opportunity to control Lu?" After all, 100-footed insects died but did not freeze. Lu's vast group of bereaved dogs heard that there were more than 3,000 members of the royal family alone, plus the vassals of internal servants and maidservants and the deceased who did not want to rely on Dalasong. The popularity of Qingfeng City has increased greatly. In this way, is this the real news operation hub of the town and that Lushi now? The woman smiled happily and said, "To think of this layer shows that my son is very clever. But he is still wrong." The boy frowned and waited for the answer. The woman blinked and said, "There is a mystery in the Pang armor. In short, it is no worse than the Sword Sutra." The boy threw a stone hard and hit a carp on the back with blood splashing. The poor carp beat the water crazy. The child's eyes are hot. "My father is the best at attacking and attacking. He has great killing power, which is not inferior to that bigly Song Changjing. It's a pity that he has been trapped in the innate weakness. He is most afraid of the rogue play of his opponent, exchanging injury for injury. This can make a name for himself and has become a laughing stock. Even the family in Qingfeng City dare to make fun of us behind the scenes. Mom, can my father attack and defend after he has this treasure armor? Can you compete with the Song Changjing?" The woman still shook her head. The red-robed boy slapped the railing heavily and said angrily, "Don't betray me." He bared his teeth and ate people, just like a tiger and leopard cub. The woman never felt that her son yelled in front of her. What's wrong? After all, as soon as her son was born, she got a prophecy highly praised by an expert, the face of tiger and wolf. Human master's qualification. The woman patiently explained, "Once your father gets the treasure armor, he can make further progress in 100 feet. What defense he wants? Reduce 10 skills at one time and crush the enemy in one go." The boy laughed and was very happy. "Kill. Kill. Let my father kill from the inside of Qingfeng City at that time. The disgusting things we do are the most disgusting." After laughing, the boy quickly calmed down, suddenly remembered something and asked, "Mom, you're really playing monkey with Jian Mountain? You're not afraid that the stupid ape will fight against us when he gets back to his senses and leaves the town?" "There's another thing I haven't figured out. Since the man's surname Liu had a porcelain beard, he has excellent bones. In addition, there are precious armor and sword sutra. Such fragrant pastries are rare. Even I have to admit it. We need to take a new look at him. Then why did the porcelain beer delay to show up? So that your mother can fish in troubled waters. And let the old ape of Jian Mountain help us solve the mess. After he killed Liu Xianxia with one punch, everything was clean. The big trouble came from Jian Mountain. And there was a great room for maneuver in our Qingfang city. The woman is confident. The 1,000-year-old ape who moved the mountain in Jian Mountain is not easy to use. But he is not so stupid as to be fooled by his mother. In fact, he has already guessed the means of his mother's murder. Why the old ape is willing to hold his nose and jump into the trap by himself. The reasons are complex. There are not only Jian Mountain's arrogance that is not afraid of causing trouble, but also an unknown secret history. You don't have to worry about this for the time being. The woman lost herself in thought and stroked her mind again, trying to find out and fill the gaps, so as not to have endless trouble. Young Liu Xianxia's porcelain beer was once a force that strongly supported the Liu dynasty. After the collapse of the dynasty, he lost his money. Before that, he was indeed the first-class door valve of the secular dynasty at the foot of the mountain. Otherwise, after confirming Liu Xianxia's sword embryo qualification, he would still be able to spend a lot of money to keep Liu Xianxia in the town and buy him for the next 9 years. Jian Mountain didn't know through what channels, so he went to find the broken settlement and tried to buy Liu Xianxia's live porcelain. An ancestor of Jian Mountain gave a sky-high price in person. However, the family took the wrong medicine and didn't want to let go. He just said that he had sold it to others. As for who and what origin, he kept his mouth shut. Later, the puzzled Jian Mountain heard the news that it was the sworn enemy of Jian Mountain. Family Garden seized the opportunity first, took advantage of the fire and got the first chance. Naturally, the family did not dare to say that they had sold things to Family Garden. Your enemy of Jian Mountain, in front of the sword fairy of Jian Mountain. As for Liu Jiasu's biography of Xianxia and Jian, and the news that Family Hospital took over Liu Xianxia's live porcelain, who linked it to Jian Mountain, far away, close at hand. It's the Su family in Qingfang City. But of course it's the kind hiding behind the scenes. She is also the main planner. She rushed to the town in person and spent a lot of money. Naturally, she wants to ensure that the deal can at least get back. Otherwise, her position in Qingfang City will plummet and be in danger. Let alone hope to take charge of Qingfang City alone. In fact, on this side of the town, crouching tiger, hidden dragon, can't be underestimated. Not to mention Lu's family name, who is not in the middle of the sun on the territory of Dongbao Pingshu. In fact, the real details of the 4 surnames and 10 nationalities do not mean how many local snakes with all-round skills are entrenched. In fact, these family owners and ancestors are doomed to be inseparable. As the old saying goes, trees move the dead. But it's a pity that they have long been similar to the peach trees in Tawai Lane and the old locust in the center of the town. They belong to move and die, let alone have an afterlife. So they have a great much of power and can be used. The essence of these families lies in how many dragon kings they can master and how many portals they govern. Because this will directly determine how many Benming porcelain they provide to the outside every year. Once there are good seeds of practice, the porcelain buyers who bet on Zhangbang will probably outsource a big red envelope, as long as they are not too short of money. In addition, it also means that the two sides have forged a friendship. Of course, it is more important than a nodding acquaintance. The woman suddenly sighed to her son. Don't underestimate anyone, even Lu Jiangchun, who stood down to be a dog. Do you think you can easily get those opportunities and treasures when you come to the town? No. For Nanhuan of Old Dragon City almost broke his heart, and Sai Jinjian of Yangshan Mountain evaporated from the world and didn't know his life and death. There is another generation with good qualifications who seems to be blazed over the corridor bridge. When it comes to the mind, it makes a water view, which destroys people's state of mind. It is tantamount to being forcibly smashed into a big pit at the bottom of the hard lake, making the lake water drop. Such things will not stop here, but will only increase next. Therefore, there is no free and unfettered person on the road of cultivation. The child thought, be careful. I'll pay attention. Mom. The woman nodded and said, "It's best." The child threw the last stone and asked, "What's the matter with Xianxia?" The woman was really angry and sternly scolded. "Presumptuous. Respect Mr. Dachai." The child was stunned, but he still changed his voice. "Is Mr. Dachai in trouble?" The woman hesitated for a moment and said slowly, "Mr. K's mentor was not only with the Confucian temple, but also second on the left hand of the Confucian leader." The child was stunned. This means that Xianxia's mentor is Confucianism. We're exactly the fourth person in the long history of Confucianism. If anyone praises the existence beyond imagination and says that such saints are angry and can completely crush the largest mountain in Dongbao Pingshi, children dare not say they believe it all. But they will certainly be skeptical. The woman was worried and whispered, "Only the saint among the saints is now inferior to the dilapidated statues in this town." The child swallowed his saliva and asked casually, "What about Liu Xiaonyang's friend?" The woman thought, "You mean the orphan surnamed Chen in the Mud Bottle Lane?" The child nodded. The woman smiled and said, "Don't you call them Molayans as soon as you meet. Let them live and die."